May 31st, 1992, 10 days before the start of the European Championship. A letter arrived at the Yugoslav Football Federation. It wasn't from a rival nation. It wasn't from UEFA. It was from the United Nations Security Council. And in that letter was a single sentence that ended the greatest football team Europe never got to see. Yugoslavia, winners of their qualifying group, were banned from Euro 92. Not because they lost, not because they cheated, because their country had ceased to exist. And the team that many believed would win that tournament? They watched from home, as the team they had beaten in qualifying lifted the trophy. This is the story football never fully told you. To understand what was lost, you first have to understand what Yugoslavia had. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Yugoslavia possessed arguably the most talented generation of footballers in their history. Dragan Stojković, a magician with the ball called the Pixie, for the way he danced through defenses. Dejan Savićević, gifted, unpredictable, a player who would later be described by AC Milan's coach as unmatchable on his day. Robert Prosinečki, technically flawless, a midfielder who could unlock any defense with a single pass. Zvonimir Boban, Alen Boksic, Darko Pančev, Predrag Mijatović, Davor Šuker. Names that would go on to define European football throughout the 1990s. But here, in 1990, they were all together, playing for one flag. At the 1990 World Cup in Italy, Yugoslavia announced themselves to the world. They played breathtaking football, defeating Spain in the round of 16 before losing to Argentina on penalties in the quarterfinals, a penalty shootout. That was all that separated Yugoslavia from a World Cup semifinal. Diego Maradona's Argentina went on to reach the final. Yugoslavia went home, knowing they had the talent to go further. What came next should have been their moment. The following season, the club that represented the heartbeat of Yugoslav football produced something extraordinary. Red Star Belgrade, a team built almost entirely of Yugoslav internationals, Savićević, Prosinečki, Pančev, Jugović, Mihajlović, tore through European football like nothing seen before. They reached the European Cup final in 1991. In Bari, Italy, they faced Marseille, 0-0 after extra time. Penalties. Darko Pančev stepped up for the winning kick and scored. Red Star Belgrade, European champions. In the stands that night, Yugoslav fans of every background celebrated together. Serbian, Croatian, Slovenian, Bosnian, for one night, united by football. Nobody knew it then, but it would be one of the last times. While the football was reaching its peak, the country that produced it was falling apart. Yugoslavia had been held together for decades by one man, President Josip Broz Tito, a leader who suppressed nationalism and kept 6 republics unified under one flag. But Tito had died in 1980, and in the decade that followed, old tensions resurfaced. Serbian nationalist Slobodan Milošević rose to power. Croatia and Slovenia pushed for independence. Ancient grievances that had been buried clawed their way back to the surface. The warning signs appeared even on the football pitch. In May 1990, a league match between Dinamo Zagreb and Red Star Belgrade descended into a full-scale riot. Players fought supporters. Supporters fought police. The match never even started. Zvonimir Boban, the Croatian midfielder, was photographed kicking a policeman to protect a Croatian fan being beaten. It wasn't just a football riot, it was a country tearing itself apart, live on television. By June 1991, Croatia and Slovenia formally declared independence. The Yugoslav People's Army responded with force. War had begun. And yet, through all of this, the football continued. Yugoslavia's qualifying campaign for Euro 92 had begun in 1990, before the war. And remarkably, players from different sides of the conflict continued to play together. Croatian players alongside Serbian players, sharing a dressing room, sharing a flag, as their country burned outside. The captain Faruk Hadzibegic later recalled, "I never felt any tensions between players of different nationalities. We were aware of everything happening around us, but inside the team, nothing changed. We were still Yugoslavia. On the pitch, they were unstoppable. They topped their qualifying group, finishing above Denmark, Austria, and Northern Ireland. Darko Panchev scored 10 goals in 8 matches. Yugoslavia were in Euro 92. They were one of the favorites to win it. And then, everything stopped." May 30th, 1992. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 757, sanctions against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, in response to the war in Bosnia. The sanctions covered trade, travel, and international representation, including sport. The next day, May 31st, FIFA and UEFA acted immediately. Yugoslavia were expelled from Euro 92. 10 days before the tournament began, the director of the Yugoslav Football Federation, Miljan Miljanić, called it the harshest measure ever taken in the history of international sport. The players, who had fought through qualifying, who had done everything asked of them, were told their tournament was over. Not by a referee, not by a scoreline, by a letter. In Denmark, a country that had finished second in Yugoslavia's qualifying group, phones started ringing. Players who were already on holiday were told to pack their bags. Denmark were going to Euro 92. Some of them had to cut their holidays short. They arrived in Sweden with no preparation, no expectations, no pressure. They didn't know it then, but those were the perfect conditions. What happened next was one of football's most extraordinary stories. Denmark, the team Yugoslavia had beaten in qualifying, won Euro 92. They defeated Germany in the final. A nation of 5 million people, a team that almost didn't qualify, a squad that arrived on holiday, champions of Europe. While Yugoslavia watched from a country at war, the players who had beaten Denmark in qualifying, Savićević, Stojković, Prosinečki, scattered across Europe in the years that followed. Some joined clubs in Italy, Spain, and France. Some never played international football again at the level they deserved. The country they had represented no longer existed. Its 6 republics had become 6 nations, each with their own flag, their own anthem, their own football federation. The team that had beaten Denmark, the team that had the talent to win it all, simply ceased to exist. In the years that followed, the individual players proved what might have been. Savićević won the Champions League with AC Milan in 1994. Šuker won the Golden Boot at the 1998 World Cup. Boban became a legend at AC Milan. Prosinečki starred for Croatia. Stojković became one of the most revered players in Japanese football history. Extraordinary talents, every single one, but never again together, never again as one. The 1992 European Championship sits in football history as Denmark's greatest miracle. But it is also Yugoslavia's greatest tragedy. A team that didn't lose their chance on a football pitch. They lost it in a UN resolution, in a letter, in a war that nobody on that team started. Football couldn't save Yugoslavia, but for one brief, extraordinary moment, it showed what Yugoslavia could have been. This was the story football never fully told you. Subscribe. There are more stories where this came from.